Okay, so in this section we're going to do the Rose stuff, and Rose is big, so I'm only going to really tackle early Rose up to Canto, because there's a lot. Again, I'm going to use Mauler, but I'm going to introduce another girl who does a thing on a Quora section, and I'll just bounce back between the two. I'm assuming people have seen the film, so I'm just going to get right into it, but let me set up the basic premise that, Rose and Finn meet, she stuns him because he's trying to escape. He's trying to get onto the pod, they argue, then Poe intervenes, and then they come up with the issue of how to destroy the tracker so they can escape. So, what's his first attack? His first thing is they're just first meeting. This is Mauler. Considering this movie took place directly after the first, I don't know how the legend spread, but that's fine. This is 55-53. He's talking about Finn. How did Finn become such a rebel legend so quickly? Now, he does have a solid point, but not a really strong point. Namely, this is the only, let's repeat, the only Star Wars film that takes a very short amount of time. The other Star Wars film always take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years after the last one. This is somewhat close to the timeline of TFA. So it's a legitimate question, but is it really? I mean, okay, what did Finn do with Chewie, Rey, Han? He destroyed the Star Killer, something that destroyed 5 planets. So, and again, Poe helped out with the fighters, let's not ignore that, but he was a critical part, and he also got injured, of taking down this massive Star Killer. I mean, the thing is the size of a planet, and he's in a coma. Why would the rebels not talk about this? And why would Rose be ignorant? I mean, he'd have to argue that Rose is so radically geographically, millions of miles away, that communication to her is insanely impossible. Or it could just be she's been around, she was in the background, and they just talked about it. Over the, days, weeks, saying, oh, did you hear about this guy? Oh, who? The former stormtrooper? That's another thing. He's one of the very few stormtroopers that they have. So it's so he sticks out from a number of places to be a celebrity. So what are you talking about? I mean, I guess your thing is he shouldn't be a legend so quickly, but that's your terminology. I mean, it is true that Rose fawns over him. And this is a more deeper critique, which we're not going to do here. I'm going to deal with more basic plot issues as well as some thematic issues. I think it's obvious, and Rian Johnson says this in interviews, she's sort of like a meta thing about Star Wars fans. This is she is a Star Wars fan in the Star Wars story. So yeah, she's very excited to meet John Boyega, because it's a weird meta performance, but okay. Yeah, meta films do exist. I mean, you just might be, I don't like meta fiction at all, but that's a preference issue. That's not a logical issue. And her being excited does not negate her, knocking him out. So yeah, you're right. Initially, she's geeking out all over him, but she still knocks him out. So again, I'm not quite clear the point is. It seems that solid point is the timing. He wants more time to develop the legend, but we really don't know the time. And given the events, which were pretty extraordinary, I'm not exactly what's the logical issue? It seems like given Rose's psychology, yeah, she could believe very quickly he is a legend, he's a hero. So, again, I don't see the issue, so let's move on. So, the actual plot is, of course, what Maz Kanata says is that they need to get the codebreaker, right? So, now Mauler's criticism is, well, this is very convoluted. And this is just a general criticism with Ryan, that he, quote-unquote, puts visuals before story, right? Visuals before story, 59-35. Okay. Let's go through this. Let me just use A Song of Ice and Fire as an analogy, and let me go very quickly. There's minor spoilers, so I'm not going to destroy the books, hopefully, for people. But you have to have read at least Game of Thrones. So we're going to use Arya. Ned dies, and the Lannisters are trying to kill her. So let's go through it in 5 easy steps. A, she has to leave King's Landing. B, Arya needs to get training. C, Arya needs to see the Faceless Men. D, Arya needs a new identity. E, Arya needs to come back to King's Landing and kill Cersei. 5 easy steps. King's Landing, get training, Faceless Men, new identity, kill Cersei. Okay, now let's do with what Maz's plan is. A, they need to disable the tracker. B, they need to go to Canto. C, they need to get the codebreaker. D, they need to get on the ship, disable the tracker, and finally need to escape. 5 easy steps. It's not convoluted. It's a very simple plot. It's a lot of events, but it is a very simple plan. Now, here's his criticism. And I don't know if he's kidding. He's saying, difficult for children to follow despite them being the target demographic. Let me just repeat that. Difficult for children to follow despite them being the target demographic. I don't know if this is meant to be a joke, seriously. Is he saying this is a joke? I just summarized the plot really quickly. It wasn't convoluted, so I don't know what he means. I mean, I guess he means this is a joke? I don't know. It was really weird. But he does bring up a sort of legitimate issue, which I'd never thought about it. So I want to congratulate him because he did bring up an issue. It's not a logical plot hole, but he does bring it up because apparently he's not thinking through the issue. But he brings up, like, they're thinking about just getting onto the ship, right? But Finn says, oh, we'll just get to the breaker room. And then he says, well, wait, shouldn't the breaker room be guarded? And you think, wow, that is a brilliant, yeah, there's another plot hole you just discovered. Wow, Ryan is really... But now let's think about this for a second. First of all, why wouldn't they have guards at the breaker room? Well, obviously, they don't expect rebels around every corridor, so they're not going to guard every room. But still, you must say, well, the breaker room is really, really important. Okay, here's another very, very important room. Snoke's throne room. You know how many guards are posted outside? None. How well guarded is he? He has no guards. The only guards are there in his throne room. How many guards are guarding him? 5, 6? According to Mauler, it should be like 50, 60, 70, 80. Snoke should have 80, 90 guards around him in his throne room and his bedroom and his other room all the time. Yeah, you're right. That's perfectly logical. But now here's a problem. If 120 guards were always surrounding Snoke all the time, everywhere he moved, don't you think that would destroy his legitimacy? Wouldn't this trooper say, why, if he's so powerful, why are we always guarding him with 20, 30, 50 people? Yeah, stupid. When you construct a fiction, you have to take these things for granted. If they guarded every, quote, important room, that's going to create a lot of problems. People can be bribed. People can fall asleep. People can be stupid. Mistakes could occur. Putting more personnel would not immunize yourself from the threat. Stupid. That is not a good argument. Yes, every important room should be solved. How are they going to do that? How are they going to guard every important room? They'd run out of people. Like, is this seriously your argument? Have you written any pieces of fiction, you idiot? If you're going to criticize fiction, at least study it carefully. Dumb. That is such a dumb argument. Good God. Okay, so now let's switch to the Quora girl once we get to Canto. And now Rose says something about capitalism, and she's just going nuts over it, but she, doesn't know the quote. So, okay, this is the Quora girl. I'm not going to troll people. I'm not going to use her full name. People have to look it up for themselves. This is Jennifer, and this is her mocking response to Rose. Seriously, this is the only way in the galaxy people get rich. Okay, maybe also failed astronomy. Can we talk about how big and how many trillions upon trillions of beings there are in the galaxy, and why that economic theory doesn't hold water? Okay, that seems like a very effective criticism, right? If, let's be careful, if Rose said that war is the only way to get rich, you're correct. That would be a very illogical, stupid statement. But what does she actually say? Here's the quote. Only one business in the galaxy gets you this rich. So Rose is not, in fact, saying all forms of wealth getting or all forms of capitalism are bad, or even that only through war do you become rich. She's saying that war makes you this rich. In other words, Canto rich. So she's differentiating between ordinary rich people like Leia. Leia's a rich person, right? And militarists who are super rich. Now, I know that's a fine distinction, and I know some people might not believe it, but the local millionaire is not the same thing as a local billionaire, who is not the same thing as Bill Gates. That's just an obvious distinction. That's so obvious. So that's why Rose is not saying that. She's not committed to the statement that war equals capitalism. She never says that. She's not saying, well, only traders are capitalists and only capitalists are militarists. Obviously, there are rich people in the galaxy who have nothing to do with war. But she never says otherwise, so you're just inventing a phony issue. But let's get into this really smarmy thing. Can we talk about how big and how many trillions upon trillions of beings there are? Yeah, that's true. That's very true. You know how many trillions and trillions of beings there are? You know who they are? Viruses. You know what else they are? Bacteria. Fungus. Do you know how many organisms are in the trillions and trillions and are completely irrelevant to the issue? Stupid! Stupid! You don't know any biology. You don't know any astronomy. Like, yeah, there are trillions and trillions and trillions of people. There are trillions and trillions of beings, but none of them are relevant to the ones we're talking about. Jesus Christ, not all beings are relevant to the issue. So, okay, it's a cute statement, but you don't know any biology, so what have you brought up? Nothing. Nothing at all. Okay. So, let's move on. Because we're only getting a little way in here. So, we're now getting into, like, well, why are they at Canto? And how are they going to pay for the codebreaker? Mauler brings this up too. Like, yeah, what are they going to do with the codebreaker? Does the Maz Kanata, does he owe her a favor? Leia has money. The Resistance has money. They do have resources to pay for codebreakers. Presumably, what they're going to do is talk to him and say, well, we're with the Resistance, and the Master Codebreaker will be like, okay, but how am I going to get paid? And say, well, we work with Leia. The Organa family's famous. I mean, we see this explicitly. They talk about this. And cut scenes with Revenge of the Sith, they fund the Resistance. They use money. So, yeah, Organa's family has money. So they could just say, listen, we're with the Resistance, we're with Leia, we're with people who do have money. Presumably he could take credit, or he could take an upfront payment, or both. So, yeah. I mean, money's the thing in Star Wars. Money. Ryan didn't introduce money 2 seconds ago. They've always had Republican credits. They've had money, they've had wealth, they've had gold, they have resources. People really believe that Rian Johnson invented fuel. There was fuel in Phantom Menace. They had to stop for fuel, and they found Anakin. Like, this isn't even, like, esoteric knowledge. This isn't even, like, really specialized knowledge. If you had seen the films and at least paid attention, yeah, fuel, money, capital, wealth. The Plagueis novel goes through this explicitly. Plagueis and Palpatine go through this a lot. In fact, they're much more radical than Rose. They're like, this war industry is we're going to make so much money and we're going to destroy the Republic. All these corporations are just making huge amounts of money from resources, mining or building weapons. So even this stupid criticism, like, good God, Ryan's this radical anti-capitalist super pacifist. He keeps talking about war and capitalism. That never occurred in Star Wars. Never. It was right there in the Plagueis novel. This is 2012. This is right before Disney bought it. This isn't even Disney. This is under Lucas. Lucas condemns capitalism. I mean, he condemned the sale of Disney by calling them slavers. I mean, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Like, do you guys seriously never seen Republican credits or money? Like, Han talks to Luke about money. Like, money's a thing. Fuel has always been a thing. What are you talking about? It's like, again, I feel like I'm crazy, but apparently an Asian woman brings up some money, and they're like, oh my God, you've just politicized everything in Star Wars. Like, I hate to use such rough language and mock these people, but I'm like, have you paid attention to the prequels? I will say this, at least Jennifer is more consistent. She says, oh, this kind of reminds me of the prequels. Okay. Well, that's all I'm arguing, that there's nothing inconsistent with what Ryan is doing or what Rose is saying. But Mauler's honestly acting like, yeah, when did fuel become a thing here? Phantom Menace, Star Wars 1977, Plagueis novel. I could name more sources, more graphic novels, comics, yeah, Solo, young Solo. It's hard to believe this, but he did stuff for money. Him and Lando, they're gamblers. They gambled with money. I know this is crazy, but there's this movie called Solo, and in that film, they talk about fuel, but they do more than fuel. Like, there's money, there's credits, there's gold, there's stuff. People in Star Wars trade stuff for money. Money exists in Star Wars. Okay, so this is just the early stuff. I just wanted to get the major stuff out of the way, because there's obviously a lot more stuff with Canto. I just want to get the early stuff. We've dealt with the Codebreaker, Rose and Finn, early interactions, and apparently it's convoluted plot with the Codebreaker, which is so complicated, it can't be summarized in 20 seconds. Okay, but this has been the first, I'm sure, of many videos about Rose, because, wow, the hatred of Rose is so insane. People just keep making up stuff, or just imagining stuff, or posting stuff, and it's like, they've answered all these questions in the film. They've answered these questions in the prequels. I really don't know what people are doing. It's not like Jar Jar. With Jar Jar, it was just obvious. He was just annoying. He was leading a whole army. With Rose, people are just imagining stuff. They're like, she did this, she didn't do that. She did this, she didn't do that. I'm like, if you want to hate the character, but please hate her for what she did or says. They're just making up quotes and making up situations. So, all right, but these are just the first ones, and I know there's going to be a lot more because people seem to just have this weird obsession with Rose. But okay, we'll go through it. This has been Star Wars Analyzed. Mauler, as well as this alleged Jennifer's Star Wars geek girl on Quora. And we'll be going through more Rose and the other issues like Luke. So don't worry, we're going to get to Luke very quickly. Thanks for listening. Star Wars Analyzed. If you like to subscribe to content, please hit the like button and or subscribe. Thanks for listening.